This training has developed over the last 2-3 weeks. Zoom is the primary focus, but I do touch on some other things to consider. This initially started out as a training on being mindful of protecting yourself as an educator, as you're doing these virtual meetings and phone calls and stuff like that. But this has turned more into a Zoom training because people are using it more frequently. And so I go through a lot of the functionality in the training, and hopefully it helps. And please ask questions as they come up. So what we know is there's a lot of change happening. Some of them are being very aggressive with the rollout of curriculum. Most districts that I have heard of are not being very prescriptive about how you do your your teaching, or what platform you're going to use, and they're not really being prescriptive about curriculum either. But yeah, we'll see as things move along. One of the biggest frustrations that I'm finding is that people have a very different comfort level with technology, and they're comparing themselves to their colleagues who have a real high level of comfort. And so try to do your best, and just know that we're all learning through this as we go along, and we all know this is trying our patience big time. Some of the stuff I'm going to be telling you might be common sense or something you already know, but hopefully we'll bring up some things that may not have crossed your mind, and just things to think of. So posting of materials online, the districts are allowing or recommending teachers use like Google Classroom, things like that. But as we've moved away from our classrooms, a lot of people are trying to post new materials that they find. And one thing that we want you to be mindful of is copyright infringement. That I had a situation, and this wasn't related to distance learning, but it's a good story for copyright, is I had a teacher who had a classroom set of novels, and the kids couldn't take them home because she had multiple classes were the same level. She found a PDF version of the novel and posted it on her classroom website so the kids could access it at home. She just did a Google search, found it, and posted it. Well, the publisher was looking on district websites and teachers' websites for people that were doing exactly what she did, and the publisher sued the school district for copyright infringement. She didn't do anything malicious. It just was something that she was trying to do with her students to help them out. And so we recommend, if you don't know if you have the rights to use the materials, talk to your administrator. If you're using a book, a lot of times the copyright information will be in the front up by the dates and everything like that. But just be mindful of copyright as you're posting things online. Cell phones. Some districts are asking teachers to call all of their students, or call up your first period kids. We recommend not sharing your cell phone with parents or students. We've had a lot of situations where parents are calling at 11, 12 o'clock at night and asking, well, why didn't you answer my phone call? We've had situations where students have shared inappropriate pictures with teachers via text. And so really, we recommend not sharing your cell phone. You can use texting apps like Remind. Google Voice is another way to hide your cell phone and make phone calls. If you can get into your classroom, use your classroom phone. But if you do have to use your cell phone, if you just type *67 before you enter the phone number, it'll block your number, and then that way you're maintaining your privacy of your phone. Other platforms than Zoom, Screencastify. I actually just heard about a half hour ago that they're making it free for teachers. So you can record a lesson and then download it and post it on your Google Classroom or whatever. I know that some of my folks who are a little anxious about using Zoom are using this, and they've opened it up. They're more functionality and more time free for teachers. I know my elementary folks are using Seesaw a lot for it, and a handful of people are using Google Meet. And so they're There are a lot of platforms out there for you to use, but you know, I don't have a lot of information about them, and really, I really am just hoping that people are maintaining their protective, you know, protecting themselves and keeping their privacy. So the recommendation on virtual meetings: set clear expectations before you even start. This is we are getting into their homes. And so there are some great things online. CTA has some nice flyers that I'll show you in a little bit. Teachers Pay Teachers. There's a free Zoom etiquette for distance learning flyer that you can probably hand out to the families, but really make it clear that the expectations that you have for behavior in your classroom should be the same as your online classroom, including their language, their attire. So if you see a kid wearing a beer t-shirt or something like that, make sure that they change it, turn off their video, and address it immediately. When you start a Zoom, all of you were put into a waiting room. We recommend that. And one of the things that we found was if you send a meeting out and you don't have the waiting room, people can get into the room and start conversing with each other before the meeting starts. And if you don't get on and maintain the conversation or monitor it, there could be some things going on before the meeting starts. And so we recommend that you do an on the waiting room. And Zoom has been changing its security settings as we move along here. And the default now is that you will have a waiting room when you start your Zoom session. Ooh, say that 10 times fast. All right. And then there's also a password protection that you can put into, and I'll show you where that is when you start up your Zoom meeting. Students are coming into your house too, so make sure that your background is free of any wine bottles or political messages. Basically treat your Zoom meeting like your classroom, and anything that you wouldn't have in your classroom, don't have in your house. There is the function of changing your background. So if you can see my video, I've got Dodger Stadium in the background. I'll show you how to do that. And that will block out a lot of the things going on behind you and maintain your privacy. We are hearing of teachers whose spouses think it's funny to do something goofy in the background while their husband or wife is teaching, or their kids are walking around in their underwear, walking behind them in their pictures. So make sure that you're in a place where your family members aren't going to get into any chicanery. You also have the ability to disable the students' ability to share their screens. And that was something that we found. I work with the Conejo Unified School District, the teachers there. They had a board meeting open on Zoom, and they didn't shut down any of the settings, and so people were posting pornography, Nazi paraphernalia on the screen and stuff like that. So we recommend you turning off all of the kids' abilities to share their screens. You can unlock that for them later if you need to. My wife's a teacher, and one of her students was having trouble finding something on Google Classroom. And so she was able to turn on the functionality for him so she could see his screen and show him where to go. So you can turn it off and turn it on. The new setting for Zoom is that when people enter the room, they're muted. And so you can temporarily unmute yourself by holding the space bar. And so you could show that to your kids. You also have the ability to turn off all of the microphones on the kids' computers or turn them back on. Make sure what you're wearing is appropriate. No political stuff, no brewery t-shirts. I took some screenshots of my screen as I was working through this Zoom presentation. I realized this afternoon that one of the shots, I had a brewery cap on. And so I violated my own rule, but it's just adults, so I guess it's okay. If you can avoid it, try not to be in a chat room by yourself with a student. Try to, my wife has office hours, so the kids are coming in one at a time. and that raises my anxiety level, but she's keeping it professional, and you know, there's just be safe. Zoom bombing, and that's what happened to Conejo's school board, is when a link is posted publicly, anybody can find it and use it. And so we recommend, rather than putting it out on Facebook or Twitter or any open platform, that you email your students directly or put it in a password protected site like Google Classroom so the kids can access it there and nobody else can. When you start your Zoom, you can either have your own personal ID or you can auto-generate a new link. I recommend using the auto-generated link. That way, that once that meeting's done, that link is dead. And because if you use your personal ID for multiple meetings, then people can use it and find it and get into it later. And so just using the auto-generated one is the safest option. And then we've also heard teachers that are concerned about students recording them against their permission. And so you still have your rights protected for not being recorded without your consent. These are a couple of the flyers that I referred to in the beginning. The color ones were on CTA's website. The Zoom cheat sheet on the left is the one that I referred to from Teachers Pay Teachers. And so if you just do a Google search, you can find that. The color ones are on CTA's website, I think in the IPD section. So this might be something good to hand out or email to parents or students, and laying down the ground rules before you get your meeting started. And this is another one for Google Hangouts that CTA posted. Lisa, how are we doing on questions?
One just popped up. Oh, a lot of feedback. It says, is it possible to set reoccurring meetings but also have a different auto-generated link for each meeting?
I don't know. I would have to play around with it. I know that there is a setting for reoccurring meetings, but I don't know if it creates a new one. I suspect it doesn't.
Yeah, I don't think it does, because I've had reoccurring meetings and it's always the same link.
Right.
And then someone asked in the chat, do you know if star 67 is a free function with carriers?
It is. And
Yeah.
it's universal. So any carrier that you have that's the function that works. So this is a video. If you watch that left-hand center part, watch Jennifer over there. Don't be Jennifer and turn off your video camera for your students if you see them doing what Jennifer's about to do.
Why? Just why?
So Jennifer forgot to turn off her video when she made a visit to the restroom. So if you see that happening in the background with your students, try to shut it down, and please don't do it yourself. This was a message. This happened probably on the first couple of days of virtual learning, where teachers were finding people logging into their rooms and not saying anything, not posting any video. Their microphone was off, but they couldn't identify the person. And so if you have a person in your room that is not identified, we recommend putting them back into the waiting room or kicking them off entirely. And I'll show you how to do that later. All right, so when you set up your meeting, you have multiple choices here for how long the meeting is going to be, the date, the time. There's that recurring meeting function that somebody was asking about earlier. The meeting ID, generating it automatically creates a new link for every meeting. Or if you want the kids to come back and forth, you can use your own personalized meeting ID. You can also set a password if you want to add another layer of protections. The video portion, you can start it with the participants' videos off or on, and you can allow people to call in by telephone or computer. You can send out your notifications through whatever function calendar that you want to do. So, this part's pretty easy. The advanced options on the left-hand side creates a new window, and you get a little thing down on the bottom. So enable the waiting room, enable before the host. You can mute participants on entry. This has changed a little bit since Zoom had so many problems with people having issues, that the default now is that the enable waiting room is already there, and participants are muted upon entry. So you don't have to do this, but if you wanted to change that, this is where you would do it. So virtual backgrounds. The way to do it is once you start a meeting, and once you do this, it's set for all of your meetings in the future. So I did this by myself and showed the step-by-step before I even started a new meeting. So down on the bottom left-hand side, there's a little caret next to the video. And when you click on it, a little window pops up and you have your video settings and you can choose your virtual background. We're finding that some of the school districts' computers don't have the capacity for it. And I'm not sure which platform. I'm not sure if it's Acer computers or Google Chromebooks. It seems to run the gamut. So check your computer to see if you can do it.
Jake, do you need a green screen to do that?
No.
What's the deal with green screens?
No green screen. If you, it might help if you have a dark room. I know that people have, the backgrounds work a lot better in a well lit room, but I'm sitting in my bedroom right now and I don't have a green screen behind me. So my screen looks the way it does with just the headboard of my bed behind me. So you click on choose virtual background and you get a new window that pops up, and the Zoom has some default ones that you can choose from. Or if you click on that little plus sign, you can upload a picture from your own computer. And so you see mine, I put up Dodger Stadium, but you click on that and then it automatically will pop the picture into your choices of virtual backgrounds. And then you click on the one you want and you get Cookie Monster in the background if that's your thing. So they've made it pretty easy. We recommend it just to keep any, if you've got a goofy spouse who thinks it's funny, this would protect that background. So on April 8th, I guess we're about a week ago, Zoom added a new function at the bottom for security. And so if you click on that security tab, you get an option, and this is where you can turn off the screen sharing for the kids. You can turn off the chat function. You can change their ability to rename themselves. I've heard of some students putting in some inappropriate names for themselves. This locks their ability to do that. And so one thing to think about. The other thing too on this is at the very top of that window is lock meeting. So once you have all of your students in that you're expecting, you can lock the meeting and nobody else can get in. So that's just another layer of protection that Zoom has added to its functionality. So once you're in your room and you want to get started, your background's set, all of your settings are done, so you're protecting the students and protecting yourself. You click your start video and unmute yourself, and you're ready to roll. I think we're getting some questions, Lisa.
Yes. Can you see them, or do you want me to read them out loud?
Let's see. How does someone change their name before students click on the link meeting? Sometimes students are in the wait room with iPads, parents' names or siblings, perhaps due to multiple users. Parents say it's not prompting them anymore. I can only rename themselves when I accept them. There is, if you looked at that little security thing on the front end that I just showed a couple of last slide, you can allow them to rename themselves or bar them from renaming themselves. So that's where you would allow them to do that. If a student gets kicked out due to a problem with their Wi-Fi, will you still be notified if they're in the waiting room? Yeah, I'll show you in a second what it looks like when somebody wants to get out of the waiting room and into your room. A little window pops up. And can you only access the security feature in the meeting? Yes, the students will have the security feature at the bottom, but since you're the host, you control the meeting, and so you control all of those settings. They'll have it, but if they're not starting the meeting, they won't be able to manipulate yours. And I thought I saw a couple more in the chat. It doesn't work if your background is too busy, so it needs to be mostly solid. Okay, yeah, so that makes sense. So if you just have you can just put in a screen that's just black or another color. I know that some of the backgrounds, one of the presidents I work with, his computer, when he tries the backgrounds that Zoom has as the default, his face gets all, the background goes across his face. So it really depends on the camera on your computer, the lighting in your room. But yeah, the less busy the picture is, the more consistent it's going to be.
We have some more questions. If you rename students in a single meeting, do you have to rename them each time they join from a shared device?
I think it stays the same. I just left a meeting, a rep council a few minutes ago, and people were having trouble. If they signed in from one platform, it showed one name. If they signed in from another platform, it showed a different name. So I think it might be based on the computer that they're on.
I think so. Yeah, I had that problem with my son. And his teacher did not have it locked, so he was able to change it. But what I had to do is I had to actually go back to the Zoom website and log out. I hadn't logged out, so I was still logged in as Norma Sanchez. So,
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, I think it depends on whether or not the other person sharing the device is logged out of their meeting,
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Next one is it easy to co-host with another teacher?
Yeah, I mean, so right now Lisa and I are kind of co-hosting. So I have control of the screen and Lisa is talking. I could switch I could switch her to be host, and I'll show you guys how to do that a little bit later. But it's pretty easy to switch capacities. It's really just a function if you're co-teaching. If both people have the ability to share their video and their microphone, you can both talk, but only one person at a time has control over what's on the screen. And so you can kick that functionality back and forth between you.
And then last question so far, what is the point of the lock feature if your meeting is password protected and you have a mandatory waiting room?
It's just one layer of protection. I think the locking is more for people that are posting more public meetings. And but if you've done all the due diligence in your settings on the front end, you probably don't need to do that. I'm just showing you guys all of the functionalities that I've found that would help protect you. All right, so when you're in your meeting, down on the bottom you have Manage Participants. If you click that, you get a little window that pops up. And so you can see on the side, you'll see their name. There's a little microphone and a video camera that that you can click off and on. So if you can mute them or turn off their video there on the right-hand side by their name. And then down on the bottom, under the Advanced tab, there's a little 3 dots. You click on that. This is another place where you can mute participants, allow them to rename themselves. So there are multiple places that Zoom has put things for you to control what the students are seeing, what you are seeing, and so there's a lot of redundancy in this. Also, so if you wanted to mute everybody in the room, you just click mute all, and that turns everybody's microphones off. A lot of times if you're in a meeting and there's been some question and answer, not everybody remembers to mute their video. So if you click that, it'll mute everybody's, and that'll reduce the chatter and any background noise that somebody's having. You can also unmute everybody. So the default now is that people come into the room muted, If you wanted to have a conversation with the students, you can unmute them and everybody has the ability to talk. That was the More tab. That this slide got moved into the wrong spot. So that's where if you click on the More, you get more functionality and the ability to turn off people's videos and stuff. Are we getting more questions? Yeah, it looks like. If you need a certificate of participation for...
Oh, that was from me.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Multitasking.
Right. What is the general thought? Should we record all our meetings, or is it not needed, or is added protection to have recorded what happened? That's going to be up to your comfort level. I do recommend, if you're going to record it with students, that you re-watch it to make sure that you've seen everything that's been going on. If a kid changed their name, if somebody was doing something goofy in the background, just re-watch it and make sure that you got you caught everything that was on the video. But it is a good way to make sure that students are getting the information, because not everybody has the ability to get on at the time that you're on. And so providing as many venues for students to see your lessons is great. So if you do record it, just make sure that you go back and review and make sure that the kids weren't goofing around. And can you record a lesson and show it later to the students? Yes, absolutely. You could host a meeting and do it all by yourself, record it, and then it downloads the recording to your computer, and then you can post it wherever you want. Is it possible to just record the audio instead of the video recording? Probably. If everybody's videos are off, then yeah, all you would get are icons if they're even being shown. The next question, should we get students' permission first to record? That's a good question. Most school districts have moved to an opt-out form for students' likeness being recorded in some fashion. And so I would check to see if you have a release for all of your students before you do record. Turning off their video and audio is one way of protecting them and protecting yourself if they haven't done the opt-in or opt-out, whatever your district uses for using a kid's likeness. And do we need permission to record or just use a Zoom? Yeah, same thing. It's going to depend on your district's choice of having parents opt in or opt out for the use of the likeness of kids' faces.
Yeah, so like right now, we have all your cameras off. We don't know what you look like. And so when you see this recording, if you all check it out, it will just be the screen and maybe the thumbnail of Jake talking. I have my camera turned off as well. So that is possible. And I think that would be the purpose of recording it, is just to get the lesson aspect of it.
So the question came up of what do you get a notification when somebody wants to leave the waiting room and come into your room? Yes, under the manage participants, you'll get a little window that says somebody's waiting. So you can see the waiting room and admit everybody at one time, or you can admit them individually. So since this meeting started with one of my presidents here, we had another person try to pop in, and so I was able to admit him. I saw, where's my Q&A here?
Someone put something in the chat.
Yeah, Zoom website states that district permissions are not adequate for Zoom recording of students. I'm not sure. I suspect that they're putting that out there to cover their derrieres. But if your district is using Zoom as an option for you to teach, then you're using something that they recommended. So I wouldn't take, if you have questions, I would talk to your site administrator about it. But like Lisa said, when you turn off the videos, all you get is the presentation and the presenter. And so you wouldn't see their faces anyway. And then in the chat function, they can ask their questions there. There's a little thing about raising your hand. So you can have them ask their questions that way, kind of like what we're doing now. And so their anonymity is protected. All right, so sharing your screen. Down at the bottom, there's the share screen button. When you click on it, you get a whole bunch of everything that is up on your desktop. So you can see I had OneNote open, I had a Word document open, I had my email open. So you have all of these options. Nobody will see these, but make sure that you are clicking on the right box. So if you have pictures of your kid up or something like that, and you don't want the students to see it, just make sure that you are picking the right box before you share. There's also a whiteboard function that I was recommending people not use in the past because students could take it over, but Zoom has added the ability for you to turn that off. And so you can use the whiteboard if you have a stylus on your laptop or you're good using a cursor, you can do some things on the whiteboard and the students will be able to see it. Under the share screen, there's the little caret pointing up. And so you can go to the advanced options and you'll get more choices. So who can share their screen? You can turn that off so it's only you. That's highly recommended. Who can start sharing when somebody else is sharing? You just only the host. So try to make sure that you remember that screen sharing is something that only you should have the functionality for. Looks like we got a question. Does the managed participants continue to blink if someone is in the waiting room? Sometimes shared screen minimizes the chat waiting room screen. Yeah, it does. It'll stay orange and it stays popped up. So if you click on that, then you can see the waiting room. Check with your administrator before recording. Our district has instructed us not to record anything that shows students. Right, and so that's the best, safest option. And so if you're turning off the screens or the kids' ability to have their videos shown, then you're protecting yourself. But really, if you are getting directives from your administration about the settings, really try to be mindful of them. Where is the whiteboard found? So when you go to share screen, let me see if I can go back here. No. It's not going to let me go back. Oh, there we go. So when you click on share screen, you get all of the things that pop up here with your open windows. And then in the middle, in the top there, it says whiteboard. So you just click on that and hit share and down here, and then a whiteboard will pop up and then you have the ability to write and do stuff on it.
And Jake, this is just your view, right? Your students won't see you going through all this.
Correct.
Okay, well,
correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can see everything I was working on at that time. But only you guys can because I took a screenshot. Your students would not be able to see this.
Okay, you have one more question about the shared screen.
Uh-huh.
When using the shared screen, what can I do to be able to see who's raising his, her hand? I have a hard time with this.
Yeah, it's tough, especially if you have more than 5 or 6 students in there. You should get a notification at the top of your screen that somebody has raised their hand. But it's hard. It's really hard to multitask and do all this stuff with the questions and the chats and going through your lesson and being mindful of all of those questions. So the raise hand function is something I'll show you in a second, and that gives your student the ability to click on a little box and then you get an icon. There's an icon on their screen, and you should get a notification at the top of your screen too. So if you use the whiteboard function, when you go up to the top, there's all sorts of functionalities of typing, drawing, stamps, but under that More tab, you can down 1, 2, 3, the fourth thing down, disable participants annotation. That's something new that Zoom added, was that kids or anybody was able to use the whiteboard in addition to the presenter. But now they've given you the ability to turn off the student's ability to do that. Or if you are allowing them to do it, excuse me, anything they do, if you click on show names, anything they do, you can see who is doing it.
Sorry.
Uh-huh.
So another question sort of related to the last one. Can you turn off Q&A or chat so you only have to monitor one?
I don't know. I haven't tried that.
Yeah, but what you could do when you're setting up your rules and expectation is just tell kids don't use the chat. Put your questions in Q&A. I mean, make that one of your standards, I would think.
Yeah.
Okay, a few more. How do you recommend organizing for the shared screen? Should I have all the tabs up at the top so I can just click, or is there another way to organize what I want to share with the students quickly?
Yeah, you're just going to have all of your documents or whatever you want open, and then when you stop sharing your screen, you can then you just go back to share screen again, and then pick the new document. I would recommend having them up and ready to roll, and then once you bounce out and pick a new document, then that new document will be shown.
And Jake, I'm sorry if you answered this already, but along with shared screen, is that also where you can share like the camera? So if you're writing something live and you want kids to see it,
Mm-hmm.
is that also part of shared screen?
Yes. In
Okay.
fact, my wife's a math teacher, and so she got her document camera from her classroom, and we weren't able to get it onto her classroom computer because she couldn't download the software for it, but she's been using her personal computer, and it's once you start the document camera, it pops up like a document, and then you can switch back and forth between sharing your screen for the document camera or for a Word doc or a PDF or something like that.
Yeah, so that might also help some of you. I think the person that asked that question, that might also help them with their organizing if you have the access to that. A couple other questions. Is the whiteboard function the only way you can do breakout rooms?
No, I'll show you how to do breakout rooms in a second.
Okay, and then last question so far. Oh, no, it's not. Can you allow just one person to use the whiteboard?
You can make it so the host is the only one who can use the whiteboard, but I think that if you don't disable the participants, everybody can use it. I don't think it's that specific.
Yeah, you can't hand it off. And then someone said, yes, you can disable chat. And then someone else said their district is disabling chat. And they also have Zoom set up in Clever for privacy too. So just a couple comments there. Thank you.
Great. All right, so we talked about recording. So if you do record it, just make sure that you saw everything, review the video before you post it. And that little function is down on the bottom for record. Monitoring the students' chats. So if you are going to have them use the chat function, you click that box, and you get a little side thing that pops up here. And so the chats scroll through there. If you click on the little three dots on the right there, then you can change who the students chat with. And so you can do it with nobody, so you can turn it all off. You can do it with just you as the host, or you can have them chat publicly or privately or however they want to do it. So the wider open it is, then you have more chance of kids doing something you don't want them to do. If you do it with just you, then you are the only one who's going to see that, and so that would help minimize your risk. If you wanted to save the chats, you click on that little save chat icon there after you're all done, and then you can use that for frequently asked questions later, or you can just leave the room open and write them all down. But that's a nice little thing that they do, so you don't have to do it all at the same time or try to remember what everybody asked. Managing questions. So in the participant window, if your students click on the participant window, that little extra window pops up, and that's where they can raise their hand. So somebody just raised their hand. It popped up as a little green check mark on my screen.
A couple of questions about the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Why does my chat box sometimes appear as a box over the screen instead of a side panel? I can't figure out how to change that. Yeah, I have
I
problems with that too.
I've been having the same exact problem. I cannot figure it out. What I've been doing is if it pops up in the middle, I'm dragging it to the side and then resizing it so it is on the side. I haven't figured out how to make it
Yeah,
consistent.
yeah. And the other one was, can the host view private chats between participants if they were not included, such as student to student?
I don't think so. I haven't played around with that function all that much, but I think private chats are private and nobody can see them except for the two people involved.
Yeah, so it's just a good idea to disable that function, period.
Or just have them chat with you. All right, so managing your participants, there's one more way of managing them. So if you have people, when you hover over their video screen, if you're going to have them on video, you can mute their audio, chat with them. You can rename them here, or at the bottom, you can put them in the waiting room. And so I've heard of one teacher where a student was messing around in class on her virtual class. She gave him one warning, two warnings, and then kicked him into the waiting room. And so that's one way of managing your students. So breakout rooms. This is a little cumbersome, so I tried to make it as easy as possible. So what breakout rooms are your ability to have the students go into a separate video chat with each other. And so if you had, let's say, 4 periods of Algebra 1, and you could do your lesson for everybody, and then you could put them into a breakout room by period. And so I'll show you how to do that in a second. That's a little, it's a little risky because you can't be in all of the rooms at the same time, so you can't monitor what the students are doing. But there are some teachers that really like this function and they have been using it. So when you start, before you start your meeting, you turn on your Zoom, you click on the little gear, and you get to your settings. And so under the General Settings tab, you've got to click on View More Settings. And what that does is, and you can see all of the different things that under the settings there. You have one more place to turn off kids' videos, monitors, all that stuff. And so they've put a lot of functionality on this settings screen. So when you click on that View More Settings down on the bottom, it sends you to the internet. And so if you have when you registered to use Zoom, you probably had to do it online. So it brings you back to that location. And under the settings on the left-hand side, you click on settings, and then you've got to scroll way down to the bottom of this page. And in Meeting Advanced, this is where you can turn the breakout room on or off. And then you can also allow yourself to assign participants before. So if you know that you've got 35 kids in period 1, you can assign them period 1 breakout room if that's the road you're going to go down. But again, you don't have the ability to be in all of the breakout rooms, and so it is a little risky. So just be mindful of that. So once you do that, you click Save on the website. Then now you'll have a new icon on the bottom of your Zoom meeting for breakout rooms. So you click on that, and you get a new window that pops up, and you can set how many rooms you want to create. You can automatically send them to the rooms by going through those settings, or you can do it manually. And I'll show you how to do that manually in a second here. So I created 4 breakout rooms for this one. And so you can see on the right-hand side, you can assign people to all of you can assign people to the rooms. More options. You can make a time limit in the rooms. You can do it automatically. or you can allow them to return to the main session. So if you have kids working on a project of some kind, if you have that box clicked and you're still in the main room, they can pop in and ask questions. Or you can pop into their room and answer the questions too. You can rename the rooms. So you hover over the line and rename it. So a little bit later, I rename these periods 1 through 4, I think. And so that's one way of knowing where people are going to be. So this was a meeting of a couple of my presidents. And so we moved into the first period breakout room here. And if you hover on the side, you can move them to the different breakout rooms too. Or down on the bottom, you can close all of them and they all come back to the main room. You can also broadcast a message. So if everybody is in a breakout room, you can send a message to them all, hey guys, 5 minutes before we come back to the main room. Or, make sure you're using the Pythagorean theorem on question number 3, whatever you need to do. All right, so that's about it for Zoom. Are there any lingering questions on Zoom?
I don't see any. We had a couple of folks in the chat, kind of offer some advice about the floating chat screen, or we had one person do that, but I don't see any questions.
Okay.
Anyone?
All right, well, we'll move on. We'll give more time at the end. So Google Meet, I haven't really been able to use it, but there are a couple of things that you can do for your protection. If you have issues with the sound or somebody goofing around, you can remove them from your meeting by hovering over their video and clicking the little arrow, and then an option pops up to remove them. Also, if you click over or put your cursor over their window, the 3 little dots will allow you to mute them too. So these are really basic. I've never used Google Meet, but I thought that throwing this in there might help a few people. So really, just be mindful of protecting yourself. There's a lot of resources on the IPD website under CTA. There are a lot of recorded videos and webinars like this. There's some great information. I highly recommend it. There are documents. There's all sorts of things there. So I really, really appreciate what the IPD department's been doing for all of us. And so check that out. Remember, review the rules with the kids before you get started. Monitor their backgrounds, turn off their videos if you want to make sure that you're protecting yourself even more. Monitor their behavior. Monitor your background. We heard one funny story of a woman that one of our teachers was in her office, and the cat box was also in the office. And apparently the cat decided the best time to use the litter box was during her lesson, and that set the students all off task because they were all watching the cat take an irregularly long time to relieve itself. So now the cat box isn't in her office anymore.
It's the little things.
Exactly. And so if you have your background up, then you can hide all that stuff, what's going on behind you. All of this stuff really is probably not going to happen, but we just want you to be mindful, because all it takes is one kid to do something and set your lesson sideways. Really just be mindful of what's going on in your lessons and try to protect yourself, because this is a whole new world. Technology, I love technology. I use it every day, all the time, but it makes me nervous when technology comes into the classroom, because if you ever find me at a training, I've got a lot of stories find me at a CTA conference and I'll tell you some great stories about technology and the misuse of technology. So that's all I've got. I hope it helps. This will be recorded, and you can come back to it and check it out. And hopefully it answered all your questions. Or if you have any more questions, we still have some time.
Someone asked, can you go back to the slide on Google Meets about how to remove participants?
Yeah, so if you hover over their video, then a little a back arrow shows up when you hover over the person. And if you click on that, then a little window pops up and you can click remove. And that removes them from the meeting.
Okay, and then we have someone that asked about the link to this presentation. I put it in the chat box, but it's basically cta.org/IPD trainings with an S, and I believe they are listed by title. So this is the new normal using Zoom.
Yeah, there's some great ones on there. There's stuff for special education, other distance learning stuff. So I highly recommend checking that out.
Yeah, and it just so you know, it can take up to 48 hours to get the video posted online. So you check tomorrow, and if it's not there, check on Friday. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Jake. You've got a whole bunch of thank yous in the chat and Q&A. So yeah, thank you again. I learned a lot personally. So thanks.
Right, you're welcome. Well, be safe, everybody. I hope you all stay in your houses and take care of your families and take care of yourself. And get some rest and exercise and
stay positive. Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye.